It's Thursday, January 25th, 2024. My name is Terry Morgan. We are here to practice Tai Chi. We are reviewing Yang style Tai Chi and the traditional long form. I've got part 2 that we've been working on a little bit. We're going to continue working on that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the repetition that shows up in part 2 from part 1, and some of what shows up in part 3 as repetition. Let's get started. Okay. I had a technical issue a little bit earlier. It seems to have corrected itself. I don't know. Anyway, feet about shoulder width apart. Bend the knees, wiggle the toes, wiggle the fingers. Shoulders down, pull up through the crown of the head, hands circling the front. Back around both sides. Up along center line. Reach out. Bend the knees. Roll through the back. Roll up as you come up. Alright, so don't lift, roll. One more time. Fingertips up, elbows drop down, wrists, and return to your sides. Alright, as we start the first movements at the very beginning, Yang style Tai Chi, right? We have 2 possible openings. I've shown both of them. I'm going to do the one that I learned from Wudang. Here, ward off, right? Step through, pull down, ward off. Come around, pull down, ward off. And again. The series that we have through the beginning and through this middle section, fresh knee, hands strum the loop. Brush knee, brush knee, brush knee, hand strum the lute again, and brush knee again. Deflect downward, parry, and punch. Close the door. Crossing hands. Turn. Ward off, pull down. Press and push. Turn the foot. Push out. Turn around. Fist under the elbow. Push back the monkey. Hold ball. Diagonal flying. Raise the hands. Saw this before, huh? White crane spreads its wings. Brush knee. Step up. This time, needle and see bottom. Fan through the back. Turn around, hold the fist. I'm going to stop here for just, there's another repetition coming up. As I come around, I'm going to repeat that entire section that I did at the very beginning. So, ward off again, pull down, press, push, turn around. Single whip. All of it repeats. The emphasis on repetition is something that when I was learning, why am I doing this again? What's the point? I did this already. Can I do a different move? And I got confused with the idea that, well, I'm in this part of the form and I'm doing this, and I get to this part of the form and I'm doing the same thing. And then I would go back to whatever it was I was doing in the first part of the form because I didn't remember what I should do from the second part of the form, because it was the same but it was a little bit different. And that's why it's there. That's why it's there. Two parts to that. One is the part that says this movement is important. This is something that in the system that we have, we emphasize this movement. Brush knee. Every Tai Chi system has it. Yang style repeats it maybe a little bit more than some of the other ones. It is one of the most economical and most effective movements that we have in Tai Chi. Handstone loop, little chin-a, twist, ouch. It's there. And as we look at the form, that movement repeats as well. We have several things that don't repeat. And none of them appear in the first part of the form. Everything that we do in the first part of the form repeats somewhere else. In the second part of the form, we have crossing hands. Crossing hands appears at the end of the second part of the form, at the beginning of the third part of the form. So close the door, crossing hands, turn around. We do a different series of movements in the third part of the form compared with the beginning of the second part of the form. That, I'm not going to do it right now. I'm talking about the variations. That similarity, that I'm going to arrive here at the end of the second part of the form, at the end of the first part of the form. This is where I end up. If I'm going to start again, this is where I end up, and I turn. If I'm not, here, close, and finish. Third part of the form, I'm going to do the same turn and then something different. As we look at that, as we look at brush knee, and brush knee, right? As an exercise, one of the things that I did for, about 3 years at the very beginning, my training was to go out and practice our stepping method, and I'm going to do just a little bit right now, and then I'm going to show this with brush knee. So for Taiji step, I want 60% of my weight on my front leg, 40% on my back. Weight is slightly, just slightly forward, since I've got more of my weight on my front foot, right? Shift back, turn the toes, transfer the weight, step through. Shift back, turn the toes, and keep going. And go backward. That circle, turn, step through, circle, step back, and circle again. That figure 8 is something that we practice quite a bit. And as I was developing that skill, so it's part turning through the whole body and part understanding the pattern. So figure 8 looks like that. That is the pattern that I'm using. It's flat. It's not vertical. It matters. In Wudang style Tai Chi, there are vertical patterns that I use. In Yang style Tai Chi, this is a vertical pattern. That twist comes at a vertical angle. It's not flat. Single whip is flat. That understanding of which, and it's the only way I say it, which geometric plane am I working on? Am I working on this one? Am I working on this one? Which, am I on an angle? Am I straight? What is the position that the form gives me? What is the position that the form gives me? And then, what can I do with it? What else might I do with it? I just showed brush knee. Brush knee, here. Down style Tai Chi, brush knee. I'm going along a straight line. I am. Straight line. Repeats 3 times at the beginning. 1 time, hand strum the lute. 3 times, hand strum the lute again. 1 more time before we close at the end of the first part of the form. This is the traditional set, not the 24, it's not the compressed anything. As we pay attention to that repetition, what am I doing? Push, ward off, step in, push, ward off, step, push in, ward off, right? I don't have to be on a straight line. I can move around. I can go the other way. It's still brush knee. That development of what is this movement? What am I doing with it? What am I doing within the movement? How do I move from left side to right side? How do I change from one to another? Understanding that change is also fundamental for all of the systems, but in particular, it comes into play with this idea of what are we doing next? As I start at the beginning and come around for single whip, right? As I start in the second part of the form, now I'm going to just go here, right here, right here. This turn, this part of the turn is the same. Where I end up, what happens next, how I develop my skill in making that change. So here, right, come around, push out. Come around, set the hook. Hook. This hook. Multiple opportunities out here. There's multiple opportunities for what I could be doing with this. One is that I grab something. There's a hook. Gonna hook. Another is that I set my wrist to come around. I go that way too. That refinement. What am I doing? Bring the fingers together and hold the hook. Okay, great. Why? because that's what the movement is. Okay, is there more? That idea that the intent behind the movement matters is something that we absolutely want to pay attention to. It's not, for me, I don't know, qualify that. For me, it's not, I can do this movement however I feel like doing it and it's all good because, well, I'm just, doing some things with my hands. If I want to do some things, I can do this, I can wave my hands around. In all of the internal arts, we have this combination of movement, refinement, application, intent, and the connection internally with the breath, with the energy, with the inner spirit, and with the heart. Shin, Xing, mind, Xing 是 outer form, Yi, mind, the Shen, spirit, Jing, energy. In Tai Chi, there are a lot of Tai Chi players that talk about Fa Jing. I'm going to send out the energy. I'm going to Fa, right? It's Fa, that's what it means, to send out. The ability to do that has absolutely nothing to do with physical movement. So if I see somebody, and I've seen this in tournament, it's been many years ago, see somebody Chen style, and you single this whip, Chen style single whip. As the whip comes out, there's the spiral that is characteristic of Chen style. It's more Wudang in that one, but it's close enough. All right, that idea. If I do something like this and whip my hand out there, I'm going to look at that and really question who that person's teacher was, because that's so wrong. The wiggle the wrist happens as a result of not initiated at. Okay, so whatever happens here is a result of what I'm doing here. It doesn't happen out here. This is, you just see the end of it. That sense of a physical whip. If you think about it, there's a physical whip. In this particular movement, it's a very good example. A whip has a handle, give or take about yay long, and extends out with a flexible end. In competition, there's several kinds of whips that we use. And as the whip is sent out, what I'm doing at the handle decides what's going to happen at the end. It's not the end of the whip that matters. It's what I'm doing at the handle that matters. The same thing is true with Tai Chi and with extending the energy. It comes from the dantian. It comes from being well placed, well centered, and well grounded. It doesn't come from the wrist. Okay, it's not out here. All right, I beat up on that quite a bit this morning. It's an important point to keep in mind as we're looking at all of these repetitions. Brush knee, push, step in, push, press, and ward off. These are fundamental movements. Entering. We're not leaving yet, right? Ward off. On this, in this case, left side. This right side, right? look in front, this comes up, right side, turn. As and go forward, these cardinal directions, entering, leaving, left, right, center, need to be present in all of the movements that we do. Whatever the emphasis is, if I'm entering, I still have to pay attention to what's behind me. I still have to pay attention to the idea that I might need to leave. Move left, move right. Each movement also contains that element of centering. In turning, right here, center. Where's my center? Right here. It's easy to see, right? Turn. I have to remain well centered here. If I lean this way, now I'm off balance and leaning. I'm not centered anymore. If I set my foot too close, it's too wide, that's too close, I can't turn. Here. Now I have room to move. That placement, how I'm centered through my body, how I center through the movement, makes a difference for whether or not I'm stable, and it makes a difference for whether or not I can even do the next movement. In all of the repetitions that we're doing, that is part of what the form teaches us. How to keep those movements well centered, well placed, so that the next change, the next different movement, can be well centered and well placed. At least we can start out that way. As I come around here, heel, I have to know where I'm going. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to make the step. Where does my right foot need to go? Here. Up on the heel. That needs that. Let's try it this way. Give or take. I'm going to work on that. Which way do I start in order to get my feet pointed toward the camera the way that I would like to have them pointed? So, as I come around here, that step sets me up for this one. If I don't put my foot in the right place at the beginning, I'm not going to be able to hit the mark for the next step. That choreography teaches us how to step. What's next? Each time I change something, going back, each time I change something, we see push back the monkey, this movement. We see this movement again in part 3. Each time I change my step, right? So I'm here, come around here, step back, step back, step back, hold the ball. Just barely on the toes, right? Set the heel, turn. Diagonal flying. We've seen this before. The movement that I started from to get to it wasn't the same. That difference is precisely the kind of thing that we want to pay attention to when we're practicing the whole form. So as I'm moving, turn here. As I'm moving, I'm not only paying attention to which movements, how I'm doing them, whether or not I'm close to being centered, whether or not my position and posture are correct for the system that I'm practicing. I'm just going to do one here and close. This is part one. There's more repetitions there. As I turn here, this, keep in mind, part two, right? Brush knee, pull down, ward off, press, and push. Come around, turn the toes, push out, come back around, fist under the elbow, now we go back. Push back the monkey. Hold ball. Diagonal climb. Raise the hands. Step through. Needle and C bottom. Fan through the back. Turn around, hold the fist. And step through. Punch. Ward off. Grasp the bird's tail. Turn around, single whip. Cloud hands. Single whip. All right, I'm going to stop with that. This whole series, as you pay attention to each of the moves, as you look at, as you practice each move, that connection between the movements and how smoothly you can get from one movement to the next is absolutely one of the things that you have to practice. It's not a static, Tai Chi's never been a static type of form that you have individual postures that you're going to pay attention to and hold. In Xingyi, we do that a little bit. There's a little bit more going on than just standing there, but we do have Santi Wu and a standing practice. And that's all we do is stand there. That type of practice exists in Tai Chi. We use horse stance, we hold the ball, right? Lots of opportunities to develop standing skill, leg strength, centering ability through the whole body, and then be able to apply that to what we're doing in the form so that the movements do not appear static. There's always a flow, and that even when the movement is complete, it doesn't really stop. Show you. Brush knee. I've been working on that this morning. All right, brush knee. Complete and continue. And complete and continue. That finish and restart. You can. I did that intentionally through my hand so you could see it a little bit more. Added a little bit of waist so you could see the turn as this movement completes. If I'm here, I'm not finished yet. It's not done yet. I'm not finished. All right? That's a fault that is prevalent, I've seen it a lot with beginning level students because they're looking for that correct position, correct posture. I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to end up here. That's what I'm supposed to do. Let me see if I can do that. Right? Fresh knee. Let me end up here. But when I'm actually practicing, I don't want to stop. I want to finish the movement. So, I mean, brush knee, not complete. That's pretty bad. This one's going to be all right. That extend through and then pull in needs to be part of the movement. It's the full extension, not overextend, but fully extended before returning. Stopping too early, stopping too late, right? Overextending, that's no good. Stopping too early, not extending enough, that's no good either. It needs to be complete. That balance between overextending and underextending, finding where that is finding your center. That's how you know you're well-centered and well-placed. You'll feel it. It feels really comfortable. It does. And as you develop that practice, that you focus on, how well-centered am I? Am I placed? Am I moving in time correctly with what this form asks me to do? Those kinds of questions start to come up through the connections as we develop practice. It's not we're reviewing here today, right? And this is more advanced. This is at the beginner level. Let me say it this way. At the beginner level, we focus on what the movements are. What am I supposed to do with my hands? What am I supposed to do with my feet? What am I supposed to do with my hips? What do I do with my shoulders? What do I do with my knees? What do I do with my elbows? What do I do? What am I doing here? Step one. Step two. What goes on behind these movements? How do I connect them within an individual movement? Now, how do I connect all of the movements between this one and that one? What am I doing internally? Where's my breath? What's my physical breath doing? What am I doing with my internal breath, my chi? What am I doing with my internal energies, jing? What am I doing in the movement that has some level of intent? And intent in most of what we're talking about is this idea of ward off, pull down, press, or push. It's not the idea that I'm thinking about there's a person here who's trying to attack me and I'm going to do something. We have that, but that's not what we want to emphasize in practice. It's not. That's practicing for that person over there. I'm gonna practice for me. What am I gonna do for me? And that level of practice, where I'm paying so much more attention to what I'm doing, is where my focus has been all my life. It's not about the other person, it's about what I'm doing. So as I'm moving, I'm paying attention to the idea that it's martial arts, and if I needed to use this, could I? Do I understand what goes on behind? Do I understand what the application is? Do I have the ability to use that application? Well, I should. I should. That idea. It's not dance. It's not. I do dance things, and this is not dance. But the quality of movement has an element of, and particularly for Yang style, has an element of that lyrical type of dance that is, again, well-grounded, elegant, full, and complete. So as we're moving, each movement has that sense of continuity, of being well connected, of being fluid, and not stopping. That part, not stopping, is something that we really have to work to develop. It's easy to look at something and I'm going to do this and I'm going to stop and I'm going to do this and I'm going to stop and I'm going to do this. Pay attention to that connection in between. It really does matter. I'm going to stop for today. Be back tomorrow with Qigong class. We're working on set 4 out of Professor Liu's book on Wudang Qigong. This is lowering and settling. I called it diagonal flying for many years. It is on the diagonal. And I'll be back Wednesday next week with Xingyi, Thursday Tai Chi, and Friday Qigong. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.